Hi there, Linda Goodall here. In this video, we're going to learn how to make these adorable in the hoop stockings. So before we get to that part, let me talk a little bit about each one. So this is the plain one, and it is used to feature your fabric, and I've added an embroidered cuff on here. And if you look at the cuff, you can see that it's totally separate and the embroidery doesn't go all the way through. If you choose to have a name like this, and it does include 4 of them. Actually, Joy is repeated because I couldn't decide which text form I liked better. So I just thought, oh heck, I'll just put them both in there. So you have Joy, Noel, and something else. I forget. So you can choose to sew these. And what I've done is I've included mat down stitches behind here. And they're all customized around the design. I thought I would need it on this polar fleece, but when I sewed it that way, I really didn't like it. So I just skipped that color. So if you don't need the mat down stitches, just skip that color change. Now you will have to sew these separately before you do the stocking. But on these other ones, these are all done in one hooping. So you can make the stocking in one hooping. It's fully lined, and there are no exposed seams. So they're just the right size for treat bags or silverware or whatever little thing you want to put in there. Now I didn't put a hanging loop on this one, but I have hanging loops on some of the others, and I'll show you how to put that on. So if you're going to use a flat fabric, you'll need to take your fabric and fold it, and the fold line goes down here. What I did find out was it's pretty thick on the polar fleece, so when I got down to these, I used a rotary cutter. Can you see that zigzaggy edge? I have a rotary cutter with a zigzaggy edge. I don't know if you can see that or not. And that's what I use to cut those. Or you could use some decorative scissors to do that. So some of these do have appliques. These 5 have appliques. This one has appliques. And these 2 just have embroidery on them. So what you're going to do is you're going to print out the worksheet. You'll see up here there are instructions. The first 3 steps and the last 3 steps are the same for every one because those are the parts that make your stocking. The in-between part will be what you need to do to sew this. And you'll just follow your color sequences or any other information that's listed there. Also, you'll get templates for printing the pattern. Now this one just has the stocking because this one doesn't have an applique, but it does have appliques. There'll be other ones here. You'll also have SVG files so you can send them to your cutter right away. I recommend not cutting the stocking template. I just cut rectangles of fabric. So I think that's all we need to do to get started. So what you'll need to do is follow the instructions and cut your fabrics. So I've already cut my fabrics. You can choose to put down batting if you want to. I did use batting on some of them, but not all of them. I do like the extra oomph it gives to them, but on some of the other ones, like the applique ones, they aren't as thick, but I was worried about this extra fabric here, so I interfaced this one. I interfaced the front fabric, and I interfaced the back. So this one I'm going to use the batting, so I didn't do any interfacing. I have 2 pieces, one for my front lining, and one for the back. And the back is folded. And you'll notice that it kind of doesn't open up all the way. And that's because I've used a fusible seam tape along there, and it just gives that a little bit more stability, and I don't have to pre-stitch it at my sewing machine to edge stitch it or top stitch it. If you want to have a loop, you can make one out of fabric, or you can just use some decorative ribbon or cord, anything like that. And you'll just cut a piece double the length that you want and a little extra for the seam allowance, and we'll position that later on. So I've hooped my stabilizer, and here I'm using wash away, tear away. And it's perfect for this. This is not a heavily stitched design, so we're just doing the basic stocking, the plain one, and it's not going to have any other embellishments on it. And really, this stabilizer worked for all of the designs. If you're using non-stable fabric, if you're using a knit for your stocking parts, you'll want to use a cutaway. So if you're making a fleece stocking, then use a cutaway instead of a tearaway. So I'm going to put my batting down. I've already stitched color 1. This is the placement line. This line exactly matches up with that template that you saw on that printed worksheet. And so what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to take my fleece and lay that over that. And that includes all my seam allowances. So we'll take it back to the machine and I'll put it in and sew color number 2. The next step is to trim away all this excess batting. This will make it easier to keep your seams from getting too bulky. So I've trimmed it right up to that seam line. You can notice that here is my seam allowance right out here. So now I just need to place my front fabric and make sure that it extends over those lines. And if you want to, you can tape it down. And we're ready to sew the next color. Now what you probably can't see here are there's some extension lines here. You can see it better on the printed template. So we have one up here, and 2 here, and 2 here. The bottom one is so that we know where to place our cuff. The top one is so that we know where to place our back lining, and this is just a center reference for placing our cuff, which is especially useful if you're using text, so you can get your text centered. So I'm going to take a ruler and a pen and just going to extend the lines out to where I can really see them. And now I'm ready to place my cuff. So if you're working with a folded cuff, you're going to take your fabric and fold it wrong sides together, and you're just going to line it up so that the bottom edge, the folded edge, matches that line. I'm going to use Polar Fleece, and I've used my special rotary cutter there. Once again, I'll just line that up. And see, I've cut this piece to do a folded one, but I'm just not going to do it folded. And I'll just line it up like that. Put it back in the machine. Polar Fleece doesn't ravel, so we can trim that right up too, so that we can reduce the bulk in our seam allowance. And if I'd wanted to put a loop on there, I would have positioned it right like that and sewed that along with the cuff. I'm not going to put a loop on this. I wanted some silvery to go on there, and I didn't have any silver. So now the next step is to add the lining. Before we add the lining, what we would have done before we stitched the cuff on, we would have done all our decorative stitching. So all of that decorative stitching happens after you place your front fabric. This fabric is really pretty. I'm not going to do anything with this one, so I'm just going to leave it plain. I've stitched my cuff on, and now I'm going to take my back lining and line it up with those top lines. So they're my extension lines, and you can tape that down if you want to. I like to put a little tape at the top so that make sure the presser foot doesn't catch on that and push it out of shape, but we shouldn't need any more tape other than that. Put it back in the machine, sew the next color. Now we're ready to add the front lining. Front lining goes face down. We'll just line it up over everything else. And if you want to add some more tape, you can do that. With the wash away tear away, the tape doesn't peel off very easily or very cleanly. And so I'll just wait till I get ready to take it out of the hoop before I try to peel off the tape off the stabilizer. We've done all our sewing, so now I'll just pop it out of the hoop and get rid of this tape. Get rid of my stabilizer. And notice that I'm tearing up to the actual stitching lines, and I'm tearing inside of that original placement line. And you might have to do a little trimming here and there with your scissors to get in there because we have these extensions. Probably can't see this because I have matched my thread color to my fabric, but there is an opening between these 2 points. And this is where we're going to turn our project right side out. And what I'm going to do is, I don't want to cut those too short. So I'm going to start by cutting that area a little larger because it's going to make it easier to tuck in. And then you're just going to trim right close to your stitching line. Of course, there are full instructions with this project with step-by-step photographs. But if you're the kind of person who likes to see it done first, here's your chance. So now we need to turn it right side out. Before I do that, what I like to do, and I don't have my iron here, but I like to press back these seams like this. And I'll press them with the iron, and I'll take some fusible hem tape, and I'll just put a little strip across here. And you're going to do the light fuse to get it on, but leave that paper on there. And then when you turn it right side out, well, you turn it inside out first. So let's do that. So it's a good idea to get all your corners poked out here, even though we're going to have to turn it one more time. And at this point, you would tuck in those seam extensions. And if you used your fusible hem tape, all you have to do is give it a good press, and it'll close that seam. Or you can hand stitch it. Now we just need to turn it right side out. Make sure all your seams are smooth. Give it a good press, and there's your little stocking. So the stockings themselves work up pretty fast. It's just how much decorative part you do in here that's going to be the time-consuming part. But they're so cute, and they're so easy to make. So there's plenty of time to make some yet for this Christmas. Thanks for watching. Please like and subscribe.